Well, welcome to Legatum Institute, and thank you for joining us for our wonderful half-day seminar on Suburbia, which is turning out to be quite a controversial subject. So I wondered if we could just start by you telling us what you think, what is your definition of Suburbia? What does it symbolize to you?
Yeah, there is no watertight, commonly accepted definition of suburbia, but it has a number of characteristics which we associate with it. So it's somewhere that's of the city, but not of its core. So it's usually somewhere sort of away from the city centre. But it's connected to the city centre with commuting, things like public transport. I think common misperceptions about it, that it's out of the way, dreary, dull, and that nothing ever happens there.
And what would you say is most necessary if we were going to take that definition of suburbs to regenerate the suburbs as we know it today in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are different types of suburbs. They come in different forms and shapes and sizes. So the classic one people in this country associate with suburbia is the 1930s semi-detached housing. But I mean, there are also examples of Victorian suburbia, Edwardian suburbia. It can be private sector, public sector housing as well. So, for example, there are large swathes of council estates that were built on suburban principles where everyone has their own front and back garden and front door and their little houses. Those are suburban developments too. And I think possibly, we're getting 100 years on, maybe in some cases more with the Victorian suburb from the development of these places. So maybe they're a bit worse for wear, they're a bit tatty. They could do with regenerating on many levels. For example, I think there needs to be some help for the suburban high street. I think for multiple reasons, things like the shift to online transactions, that some of these suburbs, the high street, which was one of the defining features of them, now looks a bit ghost townish. So, I mean, if we're saying there is a housing crisis in London, maybe some of those things could be redeployed into residential units or something. And the way that people use high street shops change. So things like click and collect, they might buy it online, but they go to the physical building to collect it.
It's so interesting what you're saying. The regeneration of a high street, which is probably in most people's definition of the suburbs, that there is a high street. It's so interesting what you're saying about that. Actually might be at the heart of the regeneration of that particular
because
village.
They've got to have attractive places to go, sort of thing. And I know that in certain local authorities, in fact in Ealing, they sort of encourage people to shop local. They incentivise going to local cafes and things. I think in Brixton, in Lambeth Borough, they have something called the Brixton Pound. I think they've done it in Totnes as well, where they pay council employees in currency. It looks like monopoly money, but it's to be used in local shops.
In local shops.
To encourage.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.